What's up, guys? Thanks for stopping by. Playing some short clips from the Coinist podcast. I try to have on the best investors, top analysts, biggest exchanges every single week so you know what's happening in the crypto market. But I know some of you don't like to watch a full show, so I'm going to bring you some clips, some highlights so that you can get the biggest ideas, the takeaways in a quick 5 or 10 minute clip. Enjoy the clip. You can watch the full show down below. How does the actual contract work? For people that are listening and are saying, what the hell is a Trump coin? I know what Ethereum is. I understand what XRP is. How the hell am I going to trade a Trump coin? It's priced at 63 cents. So what's the actual mechanics behind this?
Yeah, so basically it's going to sit there. It's going to be a futures market. Like other futures markets, it's going to be live until the election. And then it's going to settle like a normal expiring future would to $1 if Trump wins and $0 if he doesn't. And so sort of the way to read this, obviously I'm ignoring a lot of details here about interest rates, risk constraints, and a bunch of other things. So don't take this as literally investment advice or this is exactly. But sort of the way to think about this is it's a contract on what are the odds Trump wins. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that it's trading around 63 cents right now means the market is sort of implying about a 63% of a Trump reelection and 37% of a Democratic candidate winning. And so you can sort of just directly read out what it's implying about the odds and how would you trade it, and you can do whatever you want with it. But sort of the core thing is if you think there's way higher than a 63% chance, then maybe you want to buy it because you think it's going to expire to more than 63% chance of a dollar. And if you think it's under 63%, then maybe you want to get shorted.
That's crazy. So, and I mean, also the wild concept behind this that I think is bigger than just the Trump coin or the FTX is if you are the most liquid way to bet on elections, and the more liquid a market is, maybe the more efficient it is. I would say it trends more towards efficiency or being correct, right? This is probably the most accurate way to tell what's going to happen in an election or to tell what's going to happen in any event that you start to list. I mean, what are the implications there? This is completely different from me logging into Bovada and betting on Trump winning and smashing 120 because I don't get to see an order book either. With FTX, and now since this is kind of your roots are in an exchange, there's an order book. I can provide liquidity as well. I can see how much volume's there. It's just so, you get so much more information as a speculator or as just someone trying to get info about what are the actual chances an event happens. I mean, this is pretty massive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's a lot more liquid than a lot of those places. And as you said, it's also you can get way more size off. It's structured a lot more like a normal market, and so it's just a lot less. The fees are a lot lower. There's more liquidity. You can go, you can either make or take. You can also trade on margin. So, relative to other markets. Now you can't get insane margin. Unlike Bitcoin, this could go to 0 tomorrow, or it could go to 1 tomorrow. Like the odds are just not 0. Like you're in the middle of an election, a giant news story comes out that can massively swing the odds, and so you certainly can't post $3 of collateral to buy $100 of this thing. Or that takes away, but you can get effectively like 2 or 3x margin on these things. So you can also get off more size, and another thing which I just think is kind of clearly an advantage, although it's a disadvantage if you're super used to sports betting, is just the way it's phrased. The way the price is phrased is a lot easier to interpret. I know for myself, whenever I see what's Trump trading at, someone says 1.6. I'm like, what do you mean 1.6? 1.6 what? They're like 1.6 odds. I'm like, you mean like 160%? And of course it does have a meaning. It's 1.6 over 2.6 is the way to interpret it. But I think it's a lot easier to think about what does this contract mean? It's trading at 63. What's that mean? 63%. Yeah. What happens if it ticks up 2%? That means his odds went up by 2%.
Sure.
You think what happens if you think the odds are 8%? He wins. You buy at 63. You sell at 90. And so I think that for a lot of reasons, this is a much kind of easier and clearer way to read off what are the odds they win. As you said, in a lot of cases, prediction markets have been sort of the most accurate source of predictions. Not surprising. This is literally where people put their money where their mouth is. One interesting thing we've seen is, Trump when we opened these contracts, we opened them at 59. And it's up to 63 now. And why is that? More buyers than sellers. Like it's just the absolute obvious answer. And it's actually even more stronger. That's almost entirely buyers. And one part of that is that actually all of the contracts are almost entirely buyers. You look at the Democratic contracts, those are also all buyers. And why is that? If you think the Democrats are going to win psychologically, what are you more likely to do? Sell Trump or buy the Democrats? to probably actually buy the Democrats. If you think Trump's going to win, what are you going to do? You're going to buy Trump. But another part of that is that actually people are just really bullish on Trump.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if that's a reflection. That could be a reflection of a lot of things. Maybe it's the unique user base of FTX or crypto in general. Maybe it's sort of a real preference about money. Maybe it's that everyone secretly thinks he's going to win, and you know, news outlets are sort of really nervous to say a number that's not 50% for fear of being biased. You can imagine Fox or CNN or MSNBC and whatever their biases are, especially given the shit shows you saw with, preemptively called elections previously, people are terrified of saying that someone's going to win and then them being wrong, especially sort of big news outlets. And so you might imagine that there's just this tendency for everyone to say, it could go either way, maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't, 50-50. When in fact, if you kind of force people to really bet on it, people think, yeah, it could go either way, but actually maybe one way is looking more likely than the other.
Exactly. Skin in the game changes the equation a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
it really does.
I remember the polls during the last election, and I mean, what's the craziest thought to me is to eventually if CNN or MSNBC or Fox starts quoting FTX as well, the market is pricing in Trump is winning
Right.
this. I mean that this is going to be a more accurate portrayal of what's going to happen. Have you thought about that? Have any news
Yeah.
organizations reached out and said because I imagine they do look at what's the one they
Yeah.
have Betfair, they have Predicted. I've seen that quoted in news. I mean, I
Yep.
haven't seen FTX quoted yet on the news. I imagine it's around the corner.
We're reaching out. So I think you're going to start to see the first pieces of this up over the next week or two. And we think it's a really cool and powerful tool for media to be able to, instead of bullshitting about like, well, I talked to 3 people in Iowa and they all said Trump was going to win. And also, they're all one family. And then I went to a college and I found a Bernie supporter. So I think it's going to be, you can just say like, no, like, here's my story. The story is like Trump's like slightly favored. What's my evidence? Here's the fucking betting market. This
Exactly.
this, this is what markets are implying. And on the flip side, obviously, it's pretty powerful for us. Like we're pretty excited to. It's great exposure for the platform, and so we're starting to reach out to a lot of the big sources of aggregators of prediction market odds, political commentators, election prognosticators, and say, hey, when to the extent you're looking at prediction markets, we'd really love it if FTX was sort of added to the stable.
All right. So what happens if I'm on the wrong side of a trade? I won't say I'm taking the Trump trade. I won't pick
Right.
any candidate because I don't have a horse in this race. I don't want to get just that's an awful conversation to get into on Twitter. But let's say I pick
Oh boy.
Yang, right? Hypothetically, I
Yep.
pick Yang. He drops out of the race. What happens? It just goes to zero, or is there like a rule on if it's listed, then
Right.
it's a valid thing? How does that work? Like if Trump all of a sudden just drops out of the, how does this all work?
Yep. So, I think Trump's pretty unlikely to drop out, but
Yeah,
it could happen.
never
But
know.
let's say someone like Warren or Biden,
Yeah,
who if Warren has another few bad election results, she might drop out.
yeah,
And what happens there? I mean, technically the market will still be open, and if you wanted to buy Warren, you could. It'd be a bit of a weird decision after she's dropped out of the race, but really what's going to happen is, well, on election day, she's going to expire to zero if she doesn't win, which she almost certainly wouldn't if she drops out. And so ultimately, if you had a short position on, you shorted her at 7 cents, you'll make those 7 cents if you hold it till expiration.
okay,
Um,
okay,
but in practice, you don't have to wait till then, because in practice, if Warren drops out, the market's probably going to go to zero.
sure.
There's going to be a lot of people excited to sell you at 0.25%, and no one willing to buy at 3%. And so in practice, if you put a bid at 0.1%, and she's been dropped out of the race for a while, or you're just like lift 0.20% offers, you can basically get paid out, as soon as the market decides that it's extremely likely that she doesn't win. And so, what we really anticipate is that some of these contracts are going to start trading at pretty close to zero over the next month or two.